I'm wondering where this falls in the scheme of, well, in the realm of Blue-Eyed Soul.
It's up there with like Michael McDonald.
I wouldn't put this on Michael McDonald.
No? I mean, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
Michael McDonald is God tier.
I mean, yeah, but we wouldn't. I mean, yes, but I feel like that sound is like, okay, it's soulful. It's like the Bee Gees.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure if this Bee Gees fire.
Yeah,
I sing Edge of the Universe once a month, but this is. I think that might be closer to the yacht rock category.
Yacht rock. Expound on that, my brother.
So I think Bobby Caldwell, What You Won't Do for Love, Blue-Eyed Soul.
Good. Yep.
Right?
That's good.
And this is more of the yacht rock, although thematically the song itself doesn't really align to the yacht rock stuff. But like Billy Joel or who's it? Like those are more of the yacht rock type of dudes. It's got a timbre or a tempo to it or something like that. I'm not a musicologist on music and recorded sound.
You could have fooled me.
Well, I honestly learned that from satellite radio, the yacht rock station.
Fair enough. Welcome to the Lunch Break podcast, man. Episode 9 with my guy Sam True Luck. How you living? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. That's a good check-in question. I'm doing well. I prayed today down by the lake. Prayed for you, as you already know.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Got the Einstein bagels at 10 something, and they still had several jalapeno cheddar at 10.
Ooh,
they
that's
never
crazy.
Have them left into the clock, man. God bless me today.
Anywhere. Yeah,
the devil was not busy. Yeah, you doing good, man.
Devil ain't busy. Yeah, I mean, I'm good, man. I feel a renewed energy. Hung out with our niece last night. Jordan went to the A Boogie with the hoodie. In the hoodie, one of them.
I don't know if he goes by that anymore.
Oh, he's just A Boogie.
I think so. And then he's also branded. Well, first of all, his real name is Artist. Why would you ever go by a different name? Oh, I've known that for a while. But
like,
why would you go?
Like Artist Boudoir or something like that? Something crazy.
Well, I don't know his middle name. You're a fan now, huh?
I mean, I like the kid. I ain't gonna lie to you. Had the crowd rocking. I was impressed. So yeah, I had a good time there. It's just nice to be around someone so young, and like that was her first concert ever. So I'm happy.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I didn't either. She told me that after, and I was like, oh, I'm like honored.
Yeah, well, for her first concert to be there cursing and stuff, I think she did it pretty well. She looked really concert ready yesterday.
It was so weird to hear the subject matter and her rapping every lyric, but I didn't want to be the old man to bring it up, so I just kept it pushing.
It's probably extremely lascivious, and
it's a lot.
Yeah. Okay. How old is Joe now?
Joe is about to be 15.
Gosh, we still got a little time, man. She's still got a little time with our baby. She got a nose ring, man.
I know. She's grown, man. She really is.
Man. Yeah.
It's beautiful to watch.
All right, well, yeah, that's our old man segment of the podcast. We came in listening to Toto Africa. That's a wild transition from Toto and Mike McDonald to artist A Boogie with or without the hoodie, right? Like, it's just wild.
We gonna they'll understand why this is funny in a second.
What's your favorite A Boogie song from the set last night?
Oh man, don't put me on the spot. I don't remember the names of any of these songs. The one that he did.
Sing us a couple bars of one of them.
His most popular one. I know it was a single. That's the only one I know. I can't even do it.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's the one. That was the last song of the night. The Michael Jackson sample joint.
Yeah. And he killed it. We let him get that off. Like anybody that could appropriate the Michael Jackson ad libs and sound in that way, he's got it, man. He deserves every ticket sale.
Nah, I mean, it was crazy. It was packed in there. It was sold out. They did a great job. I was very impressed. I didn't like the acts before. That wasn't good. This place called the Eastern, which is in Reynoldstown. So it's like 15 minutes from the house, actually. So it's on the east side.
Okay, cool. All right, enough of A Boogie. So what else have you been up to, man? You've got a lot going on in life. And folks, as you said, what is this, episode 9? You know, I always
episode 9. This is the episode you've been wanting since episode 7.
Well, really, I'm trying to get to episode 10 because, you know, I feel like once we hit 10, it's like we got to pack. We've got a season, right? But episode 9, actually, so Game of Thrones nerds, we know this. The fans need to know this by now.
Right.
But episode 9 on Game of Thrones is always the one that's
the best
one. It's always when somebody dies. There's the Red Wedding, like Joffrey, like all of that. Because there may be some people that didn't see it, so I want to stop.
The Lion Rose was the episode. Was that episode? Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's every season. episode 9 is when then you're disappointed by 10. We hope to not disappoint you all when we get to 10. We hope to not be lame in episode 10. Keep it going. Yeah, but episode 9 is the one. Yeah. We have, since you said what was it? The Lion in the Rose was the title of that.
The Lion in the Rose. Yep.
So we already have our title for this episode, and the title is, Stuart,
I'm gonna get you, sucker.
Hey. Look at the big brains on Brett. The boys got smarts.
That was good.
I'm gonna get you, sucker. And this episode is all about Stuart being, what's the demonym? Is it Ghanaian? I should know this after 17 years of friendship.
I think both work. I say Ghanaian because that's how my family and my people say it. So there's an accent to it. Got a little twang.
Accent to it. Excuse me. Got a little tweet twang.
It's like tweet. Right.
Tweet twang. Yeah. So Ghanaian, is that how, did I say the demonym appropriately? Yeah, that might be my word of the day today. Try
not to look like you're in pain when you say it.
I told, man, that rolling of the African tongue. I'm not of the land, I just don't have what you have. But
it's coming. Don't worry.
Yeah. So we started with Toto Africa because I think we've been talking a lot, and as you all probably know by now, Stu is of African descent. His parents were immigrants to this country, and it's one of those things that we talk about in flashes, but I think so often, at least in our friendship and being proximal to you throughout the last 17 years or so, we've always just been like, yeah, Stu's African, and people think about it dismissively, but it doesn't take hold, and people don't really realize what that means. Yeah, and I'm like, no, you're not seeing, and the people tap me on the shoulder and say things like, calling out your Africanness, if that's a word. I'm like, yeah, I mean, we've been trying to tell you Stu's African for years, right? So it's kind of like Darius in Atlanta. Yeah, Africanity. That's a good one. So it's one of those things where today it made sense to come in and expand upon it a little more and talk about how that's played in our friendship over the years and just in your experience here as you're born in America, right? But your parents are from Africa, and your culture, your heritage is very rich, and you bring it forward in everything you do. But over the years, we've seen Africa come on the American mainstream more than we've ever seen it, especially in the last 5 years. And maybe I'll make this claim. I'll make this claim on behalf of you so you don't have to make it. But I feel like Stu has always put Africa on the forefront in everything he's done. And I feel like Stu walks so that Burna Boy and WizKid can run. So
that's big, nothing. Man. Make sure. Yeah, let me make sure I got that, man.
Give your flowers, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we'll get into it deeper, but for me, growing up, I think that was a big fear of like my grandfather and my mother, my father, was that, I would be born in America and only embrace the American side. It's almost like a mixed race person, black and white. It's like they do their best to try to mold or meld both kind of cultures, which is difficult at times, but because they stressed it so much, there's a level of pride that is probably what you see and why it comes to the forefront, because it's unconscious to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you said the pride, I hate that this is what comes to mind when you said the pride, because as an American, Black American, no connection to my African roots.
Yeah.
Pride. The first thing that comes up with pride is the Pride Land. And
I knew you were going to say
it. That's when I was introduced to Africa, right? It's 1992 and 94 was Lion King. My bad. 92 was Aladdin. But 94, I'm being introduced to the Pride Land. Like, yo, Africa, I'm on it. Rafiki, what's up? That was it. Right?
Wait. Didn't our guy who played Benson play that character?
Robert Gilliam.
Let's go.
So did Robert Gilliam play Zazu or... No, he was Rafiki. You're right.
He was Rafiki.
Right. He was Rafiki. Yeah. Okay, my bad, man.
Correction. I know your father.
That's where I learned accents. But so that's actually a funny thing about your Africanity as well, because that's one of the first flashes. Like, it was one time you said onion differently. Like, it just slipped out. Because there are times when, you do this African code switch that's really awesome, and I don't think people catch it. And you turn it on in specific ways as it makes sense and as it's appropriate. So, like, we talked yesterday about how the first couple flashes that I got, like, oh no, Stu is African for real. This is not a game. Where like we be in cabs, or we be outside the club and the bouncer would be an African guy, and like I'm like, did Stu just use another language that I didn't know he spoke? I think he said the term Ongawa. I don't know what.
We've ridden in a lot of Ubers over the years, and I mean, that's just a very popular occupation. When you come to the States, you might have a green card, your education status might be in flux, and you're trying to build a better life for your family and your legacy and all of that. And so, with Uber, it makes it a whole lot easier. Like, they don't have to go get a medallion now. It's like, you got a car, you can drive. So
there are a lot of people who listen to us that don't even know what a medallion is because they didn't grow up with taxis around.
That's right. In New York City, in order to be able to, and this was a big point of controversy when Uber was trying to gain market share in the New York area, is all of the taxis and limousines and I think commercial vehicles are governed by the TLNC in New York, and you have to have a medallion, which is like a permit that allows for you to work and kind of do your business in New York. So it's part of their transportation department. And so it's very hard to get, and it's extremely expensive, and creates a very high barrier of entry for immigrants in this country, quite frankly, to gain, stable wages. So yes, so Uber kind of broke that down, and now it's democratized. And now if you have a car, you don't even need have a car. Actually, Uber will buy the car. But yeah, that's a common profession in the New York City area, along with nursing. Always, my mom was a nurse, my aunt was a nurse. So, and my dad drove a taxi cab. So I really empathize with our Uber drivers whenever we're in it. I just I surprise them because I'll order the Uber. It says Stewart, and then I'm saying Wahutaden, which is like, how you doing? How is your being? To which they would say Bakal, which is like cool or chill, or straight.
Hold on a second, man. So one, clapping it up to you, giving us a full understanding of this
language moment.
Not even a language moment. I mean, you just gave us a very full overview of the Taxi and Licensing Commission in New York and the barriers to entry of the industry, which I was not expecting us to do whatsoever. But beyond that,
I'm an oversharer, man.
I think the stew is African, and tying it back to the title, I want to make sure that we clarify for folks. So you are African. Your parents, though, are from the country of Ghana.
Yes.
And when you're talking about how you're speaking to the Uber drivers or any service provider, nurses, whatever that looks like, you're speaking in a language from their native tongue. Whereas some people, like, I don't want it to be
from this was one of the people. It's called
right, because there is a common misconception. I'm going to say it's common though, but it's like every African person doesn't speak the same language, right? Just because
there are too many other languages.
But the way that you told that story was like, every time I get in an Uber, that guy's just going to know my language. Because that's what hit me the first time we were outside the club. I'm like, how'd you know what language to speak to this guy? Like, all right, Dakota ring over here. But
there are certain names. They're just like everywhere. Like you can, I mean, as you get older, you can kind of tell where certain names are from in the Latinx heritage, the difference between Korean and Chinese and Japanese. You can tell by the naming convention of the surnames and how they're set up. And so for us, it's the same thing. If I see a Mensa or a Boateng or a Wachi, I know that they're my people. Besides the fact that we have very similar facial features.
I was going to say there's a visual inspection element of it as well. Because outside of a nightclub at 2 a.m. in New York, you do not see a name tag on the bouncer. So you looked at his nose or something in the face. It was like, all right, I'm looking at your physiognomy.
Yeah, sometimes there's a scar. Sometimes there's an immunization if they have, I think, malaria.
Bro, how hard are you looking at people's arms?
What'd you say?
Like, how hard are you looking at people's arms? Like, yo, you one of my people. I seen you in a tank top. I know.
You want to know why? That was something that as a child I never really understood. My mom had one. Had such marking. My dad had such marking. My stepdad had such marking. So I'm just kind of like, okay. Yeah, I just remember that. And so when I see it, I'm able to tell, okay, that's probably like a tertiary indicator, not not the first one I would go with. Because everybody got immunized in Africa. Well, most people. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking in that regard, right? We're talking about you interacting with folks that, like, you just encountered them. They don't know you are African. No. They don't know you're Ghanaian, especially because your name is Stuart J. Cornelius. There's nothing. It's Anglicanized. There's nothing that is going to let them know by looking at it, unless they see you and they be like, okay, this guy's hair texture, his nose or something, like, this is one of my people, right?
Yeah.
Back to that physiognomy thing. But beyond that, what's that been like in your life because I think that's also a thing for me as your non-African non-African cultural heritage friend who's not connected to it.
We claim you're Ghanaian, bro.
No, I got it. I'm in some percentage from when I spit in that tube for 23andMe, they told me I'm Ghanaian.
Yeah, so there you go.
But mostly Nigerian, which is also that visual inspection thing, right? You know, Nigerian guys are going to be bigger than Ghanaian guys. Often.
Yes, almost always.
Something about how they're bred in that land is way different size-wise. So those types of things happen, yeah. But where was I going with this? So when people encounter you and we see your name, we don't identify Stuart Cornelius with African, and then you come with full Africanity, and people are like, oh, I'm taking it back.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something I've kind of battled in some instances, because I think there's a duality there because of what my name is. And I want to come back to this. So don't let me talk too much off and on a tangent, but let me tell you how our people got our names. And so we're coastal people. So the people that, Sekondi Tekrade and Cape Coast, which is on the western side of Ghana, we most of our occupations were fishermen, and we would encounter the sailors or colonizers from other places first, and in a lot of instances,
sailors was a nice way to put it at first.
I know,
like that. I know. That was kind of you.
Because everybody listens. I don't want to put anyone off. So often they would marry our women and have children, and the names would get passed down. So
like John Smith and them.
So like there's a lot of names like Williams and Cornelius. And then even for Dutch, there's a lot of Van Dyke people with that last name in that area or region of Ghana as well. So we all often have very English, European, surnames because of it. So that's how it comes to that. So it's off-putting when I walk into a place, even in Ghana. It's like, wait, this guy, the word we use is akata, right? That's like American or Yankee or that, something like that, right? Yeah. That's the nomenclature we use to identify you're an American. Right.
It's like gringo in Ghana.
Yes. It's like, that's perfect. It's like, it's like gringo, but we use it. Nigerians use it. I think it's a West African thing. But yeah, we have this kind of line. It's like you're Ghanaian, but you were born in America. So their idea is that, okay, you've been whitewashed. Because there are a lot of people like me, first generation American, Ghanaian American, if you will, and they don't speak Twi. So they're just like there are people from the Latinx population that don't speak Spanish. And so they automatically assume that I don't speak Fanti or Twi. So when I do,
there it is again, Twi. Is that African tongue? Well,
I've had practice. And even, a lot of my friends that are, that have or are more proficient in the language than I am, they sound even better to me. But yeah, so that's kind of you fight against that, and then also, in the Black culture, I'm more accepted, I would say, in that instance, right? Because they're not like, okay, you're Americanized. So it kind of makes you feel like you're deluded sometimes, but then when you're speaking it and you understand everything, there's a level of respect that they have for you, and especially in a lot of these, service working in industry kind of jobs where we meet them quite a bit. Some of their children don't speak the language. So when they see me and I do, they're very proud of that. And whatever is disarming for them, which is why I'm so confident to do it.
Well, one thing I do want to point out in that is that you said their children don't speak the language, and I'm not quite sure what age these people are, but now at this point, you're basically their generation, right? Like you're not a young man anymore. So it's just a little bit of a different thing.
I mean the kids that are our age.
Got it.
Because most of these drivers are older. They can be, they're in our mom and dad's range.
I'm tracking. Got it.
Yeah.
All right, man. So I wasn't supposed to let you forget the fact that we're talking about how that's been. So we were talking about Stuart J. Cornelius, you encountering people, but also I wanted you to talk a little bit more about what that's been like throughout your life when other people are introduced. So other Black friends who are not African, not connected to their African roots, are introduced to the fact that you are African. How has that been throughout your life? Because it's some people give the raised eyebrow like, Didn't know, Stu.
You want to know why? You want to know why I'm laughing? I think I just realized in this moment, as you just to ask me that question, that I don't think you know my Ghanaian name.
Nah, it was Iceberg. Is it Iceberg?
No, it's not Iceberg. So in my house growing up, my grandfather never called me Stuart. Mm-hmm. He always, and I don't remember
what it is, but I've heard you say this before.
Yes. I was named after, Stuart is a name I got from a guy that saved my father's life many, many moons ago. Mm-hmm. Cornelius is obviously my surname, but every Ghanaian child is given a first name based on the day of the week that they were born. That's pretty common. Most people understand that concept.
So it's like hella Tuesdays walking around Ghana.
Right. Okay. I'm a Saturday born, but for every day there's a root name, which is Kwame, and then they have variations under it. My name is Kwame Esilfi. Esilfi is the maiden name of my father's mother, my grandmother, whom I've never met.
So it is patrilineally matrilineal.
Yes, but that was the choice that he's made. It's not culturally that way. Usually the family comes together and picks that name, right?
Okay, so when Captain America was out, you had a real connection to Kwame, who was the Earth Kid.
Oh, yeah, right? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, fire. Okay, yeah. I got the same hair right now. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so
I said Earth a lot stronger than I said the other ones.
So I'm a heart guy, man. I'm all in on my team.
Oh yeah, I'm not mad at that.
I'm so empathetic, man. I was crying this morning. But to that,
normalize men crying, black men especially. I'm not mad at that.
Normalize it, absolutely, man. I cry once a week for various reasons. Today I wept for my friends. I was crying while I was praying for the homegirl. But anyway, so Kwame. So I do have additional questions because you're dropping new knowledge on me right now. So was it? What does your birth certificate say?
My birth certificate says Stuart Cornelius.
And feel free to give me any of your other security password questions. I now know your father's mother's maiden name. I know what's on your birth certificate. Yeah, if you just want to drop your last for your social, we can. You're already telling us that you're born on Saturday. Women are somewhere pulling up your natal chart right now to try to read what type of Aquarius or Capricorn. I don't even know what your sign is.
Yeah, I'm an Aquarius with a Scorpio moon rising, something like that. I just got deep with you, man. I'm killing man right now.
All right, man. Aquarius, and my name is Charles. All right, man. So
it's not about jokes. Me and him are here. It's not about.
I'm not there with you, man. Deep. Okay. In this concept, though, what I was asking is, we have people who are introduced to you being African in new ways, and one example is, I'll give you this. So back to the Afro beats being extremely culturally relevant right now in America, and fire music. Just boilerplate statement, but when people see you going off in the club dancing to Afro beats, people and just, I don't know that the listeners who are not within our friend group understand this, but in many ways I'm Stu's right hand man, and often when Stu does anything or behavior that is not what people are expecting of Stu, they turn and being like, well, let me tap Zan and ask Zan to decode for me. Yeah, so people be like, never seen Stu act like this before. And I'm just like, yeah, man, Stu's African. Y'all don't know. This is jam. Let him just go off. Just like, I don't dance to anything, but I might dance to the rock steady, slow, like the rhythms. That I'm only going to dance to a little bit of reggae. But like people go like, yo, I've never seen him like this. I'm like, oh, I've seen it for years at a time. Or another example, like you have in recent years, at least, your fashion has evolved to be more embracing of traditional garments, and we'll get to when you brought me traditional garments and it turned out to be like African booty shorts. But I think when people are like, oh, I love that, it's fire. I thought Stu was going to wear a suit, or even you're accessorizing, like you might have an African pin, or like people were just like, I didn't know that he had these African pieces of flair. Tell me more, Zan. I'm like, well, just go get culturally curious and ask Stu. But how has that been? Yeah, how has that been when people are like, I didn't know, Stu? Like, I know you've encountered that throughout your life.
I mean, it's a sense of pride. I mean, for us, like I mentioned, and so for me, it wasn't easy growing up as an African kid in the 90s. Like, let me just say that, like, that part was difficult. When people did realize I was African, they were kind of like, oh, almost like as to say, because the portrayal of Africa in that time and many African nations were that it was this, you know, deteriorating, war-torn country, not
nobody
safe.
Wears shoes.
Yeah,
There's
and
no
we're just naked all day. Yeah, and so
yeah.
that, you know, and it's tough when it comes from people that look just like you. You know, and my mom used to say they're African, but it's a troubled, you know, it's a troubled timeline in between that makes them feel like we're adversaries when we're the same people.
You know, even in that adversarial standpoint, my bad to cut you off.
No, please. This is important.
Even in that adversarial standpoint, and I try to be responsible with how I depict my family. So I will protect the names of the innocent, but I will be very clear that
like Law and Order.
I will be very clear that there have been members of my family that have put our community, Black American community, non-African against the African community, and even ways so to the example that you gave about how many Africans are in the healthcare community. Yeah. And if we are getting service from a nurse that is African, I know these Africans that like they talking that African talk, and it's just this constant, okay, it's us versus them. And I've heard that so much throughout my life that if you are not intellectually or culturally curious, you would not go and try to find out about your African brethren, because like, no, my people have been telling me that our people are not the same people. And then you add that layer of propaganda that the American media has put on us, and we just don't know, and we don't care to know.
Yeah. And so that's why a dialogue like this is important, right? Because you have a front row seat. You're more empathetic as a human being, but especially to that, you know, the adversarial kind of mindset. Because if you meet me, whether you're on either side, you're going to be met with love. That's just who I am.
My man say he's a diplomat.
I am. And I mentioned this on one of the podcasts where like I sit on the fence of both cultures. I see the plight of both, you know, subsects of what it's like to be Black on the planet, that existence. So, I mean, I think that conversations like this are important to be able to demystify. And I think that's what we do on this podcast, demystify a lot of the different things. So, I mean, for us, there's a sense of pride. But to my earlier point, it was difficult growing up. You know, we fried fish in the house, tilapia, and all these other kind of fish. We come from a place where people fish.
Tilapia is a fish.
I mean, hey, man, it was messing with you, man. It was more of a cost savings thing than anything else. But yes,
we fried fish in the house too, by the way. Like,
well, yeah, I know that, which is why I made sure to point out the specific fish, because we weren't doing catfish growing up. You know, we weren't doing, you know, all these other different kinds of fish. I didn't learn about that till way later. So yeah, that portion of it was tough. When I would go to, you know, kindergarten graduation, wearing kente, you know, first grade graduation, wearing kente, all these different points in my life where people
they think you're in a costume. Look at you dressing up.
Like, where the hell did this come from? They don't understand. They don't understand it. But then, you know, and my mom, who, you know, spent time in London, she didn't have a very strong accent. So you couldn't really tell. My dad too, he didn't really have a crazy accent. My grandfather did for sure.
Hey, so, man, just real quick, you know, I know your mom's name is Sophia. What's your dad's name?
Christopher.
I didn't know that. Okay, thank you. Keep going.
So Kobana, Ghanaian name, right? Christopher Kobana Amor. Just to be clear. I don't know why he didn't do my name like that. Oh, that's weird. So, you know, it was definitely, it took time. So I think the sense of pride that you see was a manifestation of a sense of self-actualization that allowed for me to really embrace that side, because that's me. Like there's no, you know, outside, oh, someone is Indian or someone is, no, I'm 100% Ghanaian. Both parents are, my mom grew up in Winneba, my dad grew up in Gomoa. I'm actually Ghanaian. So, I mean, I think for me, it's a sense of pride, and I love when people are like, oh, I didn't realize you were Ghanaian. And they're like, their eyes kind of light up, because now it's so cool. Like now it's like, oh, you can trace your lineage. Like this is dope. Like, like you've had a different experience in America than I have, because I was raised in a Ghanaian household. The whole reason that I can speak Triunfanti is because my grandfather refused to speak English to me. He wouldn't even call me by my English sounding name. So he wanted to make sure that I identified.
Has to be confusing at a young age.
Oh, like absolutely.
You get called one name in the house, and then you go to school and you're being called something else. You're like, well, wait a minute. No, at home they call me this. Yeah,
I mean it's challenging, and then especially when you got to write your name on schoolwork, they're like, who's this person? But yeah, I mean, I think now
Kwame?
It's great.
Kwame? I'm sorry, we got a student.
You're not on the roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it was tough growing up. I would say around the time that I got to high school, I would say, I was full-fledged, like, this is who I am. Like, this is just what it is. And you know, going to school in Maryland, in Silver Spring, Maryland, which has a very heavy Ghanaian population. Like, we're not like Nigerians. Nigerians are everywhere. There's about 200 plus million Nigerians in Nigeria. So like, and Ghana's only really constituted of about 30 to 32-ish million people. So by size, they dwarf us. So we're only in really specific
literally
pockets.
And figuratively.
Well, that too. Yeah. But there are some of us that we're not. There's not a lot of us like that, but yeah. So the DMV, the tri-state area, you might catch us in Texas, but that's pretty much it. And you'll find us in pockets like one or two, but you're not gonna find us like there's whole communities of Nigerians in Dallas, in Houston, in Seattle, in all of these different places, and Florida. But I think even when we see them here in the States, there's a connection that we have. We have this continuous kind of sibling rivalry because of
the
just
Jollof Wars. Come on, talk about the Jollof Wars, man.
I mean, I'm Ghanaian Jollof all day.
We keep telling you to stop speaking. I keep telling you to stop speaking with the familiarity. So there are people who still have no clue what you're talking about. So
they sell jollof rice mix in Whole Foods. So I will tell you now. I don't think that's a thing anymore.
They have Africa on the scene and Whole Foods. Jeff Bezos is out here.
The New York Times published jollof rice recipes now. So
what makes jollof rice so special? Because there's no way I'm letting you get out of this episode without saying what makes your jollof in Ghana better than the Nigerian version. So put it out there.
It's very small details. The kind of tomato paste we use, the kind of spices we use, that even the grain of rice that we use, because Senegalese use a shorter grain of rice, which is not my favorite, and we use a longer grain of rice, which if you're looking at grain size, their jollof rice is closer to not quinoa, but like farro kind of.
Those are way different in the grain sizes. Farro and quinoa are very different grains. All right, so y'all, I know you did not think that you would get this culinary exegesis today of jollof rice.
We're giving you everything today.
And the grains. But rices are actually really important across the diaspora and across many communities, not just the African diaspora.
Yes.
But like this is really important when you talk about it, and then even thinking about when I was so we didn't do a full recap of what we did over the last week and why we took off, but I went to the National Museum of African American Heritage and Culture last week, and they had an exhibit about the rice fields of South Carolina and how that was so important to the Geechee culture and Gullah and all of that is just African slaves, right? So rice is really important to our community and our people across the globe.
It is. You think about us, you think about the Latinx community, you're going to get rice. Asian, that's what I'm saying. And I always have those conversations with those people because it's like, we're really bonded by this culinary thing. Like,
rice is a staple crop, right? Especially people who have grown up in poverty. It feels
exactly.
It's cheap.
I was going there. It's cheap and you can scale it. So, that portion of it is good. Man, what
was the rice pot like in your house growing up? Because conversely, we actually did not. So again, I am half Jamaican, but I did not grow up with my Jamaican father, folks. So I didn't eat a lot. My mom doesn't actually like rice. So I only ate rice when I went to South Carolina or when I was getting takeout, eating rice and peas. So what was the rice pot like in your house growing up?
I mean, we had various rice pots. Like
to this big joint, though, right? Because 7 people in that house.
Yes, there's a lot of people in that house. And even then, like even my bonus dad, he always has rice in the house. So we had 2 rice cookers. And then, my bonus mom, my father's wife, is one of those people that cooks for everybody. Like, she cooks for the church members. She cooks for my brothers and sisters. That's just how we show love. So to your point about how it's different, it comes down to grain of rice, the type of spices and ingredients that you cook, when you put the tomato sauce in, what kind of Maggi cube do you use? All of these different things go into how it's made. And I believe that ours is a lot more flavorful than what the Nigerian jollof is.
Look, I'm gonna have to come in with the unbiased perspective. I actually don't know that I've had the Nigerian jollof. I've had other dishes, egusi soup and all of that other stuff.
When you come here, we can make it work, man.
Yeah, I need to do a blind taste test, like when they used to have people blindfolded and be like, taste this Pepsi versus this Coke, which one tastes better? Like I need to be the person to do
is
that.
The name of that one.
Same.
I got you. Yeah. One of the best marketing campaigns in the history of advertising. So that's why.
So you know what? Let's segue from here, right? Because Stu, you are an adroit marketer and salesperson, and I think if nothing else, you are back to that, like, Stu walks so Burna Boy and WizKid can run, right? So you have put on for Africa for a very long time. You talked about being in high school, right? And then you became like this African superhero. Like, I'm gonna be in journalism. I'm gonna play football. I'm gonna do all these things. Like, I'm gonna put Africa on my back. And then Akon comes out when you get to college, and it's like,
I think it was like what, 2002, 2001.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So like, you're out here, and to the point of being a marketer and a salesperson, I think that for a very long time, you have been giving the pitch for Africa, and now it's gotten even stronger, right? It's after the return year, it has been like, we got to go. Y'all would love it. So what is your sales pitch? If you had to give it like the top 3 points, and not that people should have to be sold on Africa. Let me say this real quick. Back to the data. I love that you said 200 million in Nigeria. I think you said about 32 million in Ghana. There are 16% of the world's population, 16.7 when I checked 2 days ago, is in Africa, on the African continent. And that does not mean everybody on the African continent is black, but we know like 98% of them are. So that's a sixth. So there are 7 continents, only 6 of them inhabitable by humans. 1/6 of the world's population is in Africa.
It's funny you say that, because by 2034, Africa is going to have the largest working age population, which is important because of growth and foreign direct investment. And the richest man in the world, the richest person in the world is a Nigerian man. I don't want to butcher his name. Aliko Dangote is how I'll pronounce it. I probably should look that up.
Dangote. I actually know that last name. Yes.
There you go. He owns a cement company. So it's important as it pertains to infrastructure and all of that, right? And I think he's worth $14.5 billion. And so the next place, conventional wisdom would tell you, the next place to invest your money is the place, go where the people are going.
So that's point 1 for the sales pitch, right?
Yeah.
Point 1. That's number 1. 3 points, man. That's number 1.
That's right.
Go ahead.
That's the first one. The second one, you know how we in the home ownership episode, we talked about sanctuary and safety and feeling like you can take off and disarm as soon as you walk into your house. You don't have that feeling being outside of the house in Ghana. Obviously, be smart. Don't be out here wearing 80 chains like Mr. T. But
I thought you were literally talking about Mr. T. I was like, hey, man, I got him tucked today, you know.
No, I mean, B.A. Baracus.
Nobody knows what his real name is, do we?
I know. I really had no idea.
It's just Mr. T.
I used his character name, B.A. Baracus.
Yeah, we have no clue what that gentleman's name is.
Mr. T.
Look it up. Keep going. So you can be outside and have sanctuary.
Yes. And I think for mental health, that aspect of it is super important because we don't really know what that's like here. We really don't. I mean, even in our own communities here, we don't necessarily feel that way. So that's point number 2.
I have a put on that before you go to point 3.
Okay.
So, and this is kind of akin to where you're at. So I watched a video a couple months ago about an American couple who moved to South Africa, and they were talking. Was it South Africa? Yeah, you know, but a Black American couple. Let me clarify that.
I mean, Black London.
They were
in Cape Town.
So let me get my point out. So they were talking about, they don't just dismiss the people. There's a good point coming out of this.
Sure.
So the people were saying that the couple, and specifically the male partner in the couple, was saying that they love the fact that when you're in Africa, you don't have to think about being black.
That's right.
When you walk out of your door, you're not thinking, "Oh, I'm black today," because
everyone
people
look
like you. And that idea and that safety, the psychological safety, that sanctuary to be like, you know what, I'm not having to consider my blackness and how I move through the world today. That's revolutionary. It's something that freeing. I've never experienced.
That's why when I said it to you, like, you have to go, you specifically, you would love it. And I would say that when I went in 2019, I went with my boy Papa, who's like my brother, another Ghanaian man. Grew up with him, Silver Spring, Maryland. My guy, the Godfather.
Both little guys too.
What'd you say?
Y'all are both little guys too. No,
yeah, I mean, you know, it is what it is. We're not towering statures. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We're you know, that's why we gotta be smart. That's what we got. And fast. We are very fast. We're soccer players.
Let's just stereotype the Ghanaian people.
I'm fine with that. So. I'm absolutely fine with that. We did beat Nigeria to qualify for the World Cup.
Okay. We fast. Our rice is better.
We beat them in soccer. Like, I mean, whatever you want to do.
Shout out to the Black Stars.
We also beat them in the Jollof Wars in New York, both in basketball and with the rice. So we did a clean sweep. Shout out to my man Arenze over at Instagram for setting that up. Jollof Wars. So we went with a group of Black Americans. You know, Papa went to Temple. So we went with people year to return. We went with a specific group, but a lot of Black Americans from different facets of my life were there as well, which was which is even a crazier
I wish
experience.
I got to make that.
A young woman I ran track with in Maryland. I hadn't seen her since she graduated. She's a year older than us. Or 2 years older than you. She was in Haitian young lady was in. I ran into her at the New Year's Eve party. And my mind was blown. And so that aspect, the theme that kept coming back as we reflected on the trip, talked about the different things we saw, things that really left an impression on them, was there was an emptiness that they didn't know that they had, and going there filled that. And I think it speaks to that freedom that you speak about, that not having to consciously think about being Black was it occupied so much of their mind that to put that down and unburden themselves for the week that they were there, the 2 weeks that I was there, was so freeing. So that if that doesn't sell you, I don't know that anything else will. You look at the money, the people look like you on the money. When you see people from other, races there, you're like, what are you doing here?
Look like you on the money.
I'm
gonna do the shameless plug for my brain.
Please do.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Please do. So that aspect of it is just so beautiful, and it's so eye opening. You feel so much at home, and they're so welcoming. They're happy you're there, because for you create jobs for them. They're able to feed their family on tourism, and the people that put together that Afrochella concert, which is now being called Afrofuture, that was the gateway to building that bridge to fixing that adversarial mentality that we had. People went and said, wow, this is wonderful. I would love to retire here. I would love to buy land here. That stuff really matters. It's also your land to go and buy. No one can take it from you.
Yeah.
There's no eminent domain. Like that's no manifest destiny. That's your land. So it was a special, and it doesn't matter when you go, you just got to go.
Yeah. I mean, all of that sounds incredibly beautiful and fulfilling. And to your point about that young lady and many people who had went, it fills a hole that you didn't even know you had.
That's right.
And even that term in and of itself means a lot to me, because I've had a lot of holes in my life, right? I didn't meet my dad until I was 23 years old. And when I'm looking at that face that's sitting across from me, I'm like, yo, there was a hole there that I didn't even know I had. And now this picture is now complete. And I feel like as Black Americans who born and raised here, our culture has been effaced. Our connection to our people was literally erased through slavery. And you have this idea, or you don't have ideas of what that connection is. Like, I remember reading Things Fall Apart, and Okonkwo was sent to his fatherland. So already in Africa, but something happened. He did what he did, and he was sent to the area where his father's from. And I was just even thinking about that, like attachment to different, even on the continent, attachment to his father's land. And circling back, long story short, to the beauty in it, that is why, and Stu's alluded to this, but I've never visited Africa, y'all. And certainly on the list, tickets are really expensive. That's really why I hadn't been yet. And if I had more foresight and planned it, I would have gone. But the places that I do often travel are places where there are a large population of Africans in the diaspora. So like going to Brazil was intentional because I like to go places where I can see people who still look like me, even if they speak, they maybe speak Portuguese. You go to DR, they're speaking Spanish, but it's still that comfort of we look alike. Or when we talked about this yesterday, when I'm in Europe and wherever I am in Europe, I've been to quite a few places in Europe, and you see Africans in Europe and they walk up to you and they just literally are just pointing. That wasn't why I said that. They're literally pointing to their skin. I've had people just be like, look, same, look at us, like, come on. And they just want to give you a pound, like, or even Rich. I remember Rich was in London and Rich was like, yo, this random black dude just walked up to me and started rapping with me. And like, now we cool. We walking around the streets together. And that's one of those things where our people are so welcoming and it does not have to be adversarial. And then when you add in what happens in America between our people and you get the crabs in the bucket, you get crime. And we think that we just have this back to the Ta-Nehisi Coates thing where we feel like we can't be comfortable when we get outside of these US walls until you realize that there is a world out there where people want to embrace us. I think that's what it is.
Absolutely.
What's missing for us. Yeah.
When you get to Ghana's Kotoka International Airport, the first thing they say to you is Akwaba, which means welcome. They say it's like welcome home.
Well, they say that everywhere though. I don't know.
Welcome home.
I get what you're saying. Well, okay, got you. Yeah. That's a little more context. Bienvenidos a Miami.
Zan gonna get a joke in there always. Like,
no, but I'm just like, yo.
Like, okay. Akwaba means welcome home. You are now home. It's a reinforcement of that. And the moment you land, you feel that. You absolutely feel that. And it's that Dave Chappelle joke where the white people are whispering. They're like, I think those black guys are going to save us.
You love this plane skit. This is the second time you've referenced that plane skit in like 3
But it's
episodes.
true. But my point is, for Black Americans, let's stop trying to find who is against us and really actually try to figure out who our allies are, and let's work together to actually figure out what we want for the next legacy, where it's like you have options. They're giving out visas. They're giving out citizenship. This is something that you can have. It's attainable. And so your point about going to Ghana back in the past and all of that, I'm excited for you to go because your perspective is going to be fantastic. You've lived enough life to actually appreciate it. That part is paramount.
And, so this is actually a cool little thought for me, right? There are so many things so artistically, there are things that I do that are ancestral that I don't even know are ancestral or I can't connect to, right? And specifically when I started my company many, many moons ago, it was actually woodworking. And I had no attachment to African art. But then when I go to places like the Pan-African Connection, I keep saying African Connection bookstore here in Dallas and stuff. You go and you see, I have a Sankofa bird that's from Ghana in my home.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's those types of things like, wow, it's really dope. And these are things that I was like, wow, I never really would have understood how I connected to the art of our people until you go and see that type of stuff. So that's what I'm interested in. What do you do? Oh, is this about
you got Kente on? Like you're literally wearing this.
Yeah.
Which is a print.
Even the Dinka symbols and such, man. Like those things it's just, there's so much that we've seen in flashes, but we can't connect to. And that connection is so extremely important to be able to have. All right. So one thing I did have, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, you think it's bad. You think it's bad in New York. Wait till we go to Accra. You're going to be like, this is a whole nother side of you that like I live in that form.
Dude, just I don't know if I want to go with you.
Oh, really? Oh man, you don't want to tour guide?
I might want the diet version first because like I don't want you to over architect what my African experience looks like.
Fair enough.
I'm just kidding. I'll go with you, man. And I think it would be good to have someone that speaks the language too.
I mean, we don't have to spend every day together, brother. you got to go to the.
Who else is gonna get the flicks of me if we don't?
That's a good point. I mean, resident photographer. That's a good point. Yeah. Unless Rohan go,
Rohan doesn't fly.
Oh, that's right.
Good point. Man, the ears. Yeah.
That's a long. I mean, I wouldn't even suggest getting on a ship to go back, but that could be dope.
That's what. Yo,
that's wild.
We
right?
may have to do like a what's it called, like a serial comic or some manga about that, like returning on via ship back to Africa. Yeah,
that'd be
that idea.
I've never seen that story before. If it exists, please share it with us so we can put our little spin to it. I feel like that'd be a good plot for a show.
Well, I mean, that's legitimately part of one of the things that brought me to wanting to discuss this in the episode with you, is because you have been Mr. Back to Africa movement. Like we were saying, right? This is your sales pitch, and Garveyism, and like, you know, if it's not, let's establish Liberia there for us. It's just like, yo, let's go and just head back. Everybody get on the party bus and let's go to Africa. So I think that could be a really cool little. Let's not talk too much. I won't give away our.
You don't want to give it away, man. No, I want comic book Zan portion back. I know it's time consuming, but I do miss that. I feel like that would be a really cool comic book.
All right, let's get off this subject. So, all right, man. But no, some other thoughts. I guess so. We have this emergence of Africa, like we've been saying, in media, where the portrayal is not 2012 and it's Coney as this warlord, and it's not that the roads, that the country's like infrastructure and there are no bridges and blah blah blah, all that propagandized stuff over the years. Now we have the emergence of Africa in a much more real and expansive way in America. You have Africon, where you were a panelist this year, and I was super hyped, right? Because that was like, man, my dog got his Rockefeller chain.
I appreciate that.
Man, you got your rock chain that day. It's like, finally, like, you recognize for the efforts for Africans across this world. But you have that. And then I also am wondering, like, what are the challenges still facing us as a people, and with Africa becoming really having its, I don't want to say foothold, but really having its just due and its moment, not just in the sun, but extended moment here in America. So what are the challenges still left there?
I mean, I think there's a lot of it is just demystifying. I think people have create their own narrative based on what they've seen or what they've watched more often than not, or what they've read. So I think being able to interface with it, I think the biggest challenge is what you said earlier. Go and seek it out from the source. Like, the internet democratized all of this information. All of it is there. Like, we don't have to wait. I mean, we should still be taught in schools. Let's be very clear. But we don't have to wait for them to tell us that our existence pretty much in the world, started from slavery. Like, that is categorically false. And so I think that aspect of it is, and I understand it's expensive. Everybody can't afford a trip. It's possible though.
But we can if we plan for it, because we can save for everything else.
Yeah, we save for
and it should be a price, and that's what it is. We don't prioritize going. So even in my experience, I'm not gonna escape the fact that I've been to a bunch of other places. So I've collectively spent the money that I could have spent on a ticket to Africa, and if I had prioritized it, then I could have gone. So
travel's
that's another
important
thing. Like,
overall. Yeah, yes,
absolutely.
But I mean, I agree with that. People could save to go for it, but I would just say that there's a level of enlightenment and that we need to have. And I hope that, to your point, this blimp is not, or this kind of moment, this renaissance is not seen as just a fad. I hope that it becomes the gateway that allows, or the bridge that allows people to really nerd out about African culture. The way you nerd out about anything you're curious about. I hope that they have that same tenacity, because I think in the end, what they'll find is that thing that they've been missing all this time. Especially,
I think I've been pretty nerdy about your African culture, man, over the years.
Absolutely. No.
Like, I've been
no
nerding
question.
out about it.
I mean, you notice things that most people don't, little nuances and things I'll say, like onions, like things like that. Like you'll actually point that
360.
out. Eggs bugs, exactly. Like that meme was great. And we're starting to see more creators, so it's starting to be more normalized how we were raised. And I mean, TikTok people that are like on the nose about the different kind of quirks of how we were raised. I think as that becomes normalized, people become more comfortable with the culture, thus making them more curious and passionate about it.
Yeah, showing home life is very much the great equalizer. It's even like, remember when we went and we loved Mo, right? But when you saw Mo on Netflix, it's like now we see how Mo interacts with his brother and his mom, and that everybody has parents, you know, and everybody has family. It may look different for people in the way that it's constructed, but that's something everyone can connect with. So I think having TikTok and all of these creators and influencers talk about this is what it's like to grow up with African parents. Everyone can connect to those types of things.
Yes.
So it's just a great lesson.
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
And it's not as regional as people would think. Certain things are just African parents. And like in Rami, not Rami, in Mo, his mom gives out olive oil. Like that's how she shows love. Like my bonus mom, how she shows love is cooking for you. She gives out a lot of food.
Yeah, I've seen Stu. I don't know if this was just from your bonus mom. It was like from aunties, and Stu has like 15 million aunts.
Yeah, it might have been my aunt Kate.
But Stu will come with like gigantic, like what's the freezer quart size? I'm thinking about just the bags of just rice.
Yeah.
Like 10 pounds of rice in a bag. Like, yeah, I'm good for a while. I'm gonna freeze this.
An African household always has a deep freezer. That's like commonplace. Like that's when you know you made it, because they make so much food they have to freeze a lot of it. And shitar, which is like our hot sauce, that's we eat it with everything. We eat it with kenke, which is a fermented. It's like a fermented kind of cassava plant. Yeah, it's interesting. Gotcha. It's very good. I will say, to your point earlier, look, there's still crime in Africa. People are still like hungry. It's not this utopian society that's amazing, but you will feel more comfortable in it because it's so different than anything you've ever experienced here or in other places. And to that point, there are a couple places I would tell people to go visit. Go to Sierra Leone. You know, go to Liberia where you can. Go to Senegal.
We should end with the Frank Ocean Sierra Leone now.
Oh, I know. That's good. I got a Burna Boy joint queued up.
Go ahead.
We have go to Accra, go to Lagos, Nigeria, go to Kigali, Uganda, go to Nairobi, Kenya. Go to these places and just see how they're doing it. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of these nations are being built with Chinese foreign direct investment.
Yeah. So I did machinery. A paper on that in undergrad. Yeah. It was all about
it's crazy to see, because I remember that paper, and it's nuts to see now all of the different cranes and, Caterpillar, we call it Caterpillar, but like Hitachi cranes and stuff out there.
Industry.
It's like, wow.
Dude, how remember years ago when I was talking about, we got to invest in Chinese industrials. Remember that? And I did not invest in Chinese industrials like an idiot.
We should have.
But I went down the rabbit hole. Was like, that's where we got to be, man. Chinese industrials. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping this working age population and the understanding of that growth makes people kind of think about doing it, because you can build a home there for a lot cheaper than you can here on the beach, bruh. Like you can absolutely do that. In the spirit of not knowing, that I'm African or Ghanaian from a lot of people, I did want to share a list of people of people that folks might not know have African parents or were either born on the continent, or one of their parents are African.
And African
celebrities
in total, I got that. African in total, not just Ghanaian.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Go for it.
Thandie Newton.
I think the H is silent. I think the H is silent. I know you're talking about them.
That's not. That's like her mic. Her full name is even longer than that.
Okay, go ahead.
And she's from Zimbabwe, or her dad is. Daniel Kaluuya, Uganda, which I'm sure you know. John Boyega, Nigerian. French Montana, Moroccan. Tyler, the Creator, Nigerian. Issa Rae, Senegalese. Boris Kojo, which is really Kujo. That's why I tripped up on that, because we say Kujo, which is a popular surname in Ghana. Idris Elba, half Sierra Leonean, but his mother is from Ghana. Virgil Abloh, Ghanaian. Sade, Nigerian. So she's Yoruba. Excuse me. Let me make sure I say that, because she takes a lot of pride in that. Yeah. So the two main tribes in Nigeria, Yoruba, Igbo. Well, most people will
Hausa as well, though, because people
Hausa as well, and we have Hausa in Ghana as well, which is a heavy Muslim practicing religion as well, or group of people. So yeah, I just wanted to drop that on you. This is a very prideful podcast for me. So I appreciate
get it off, man.
You giving me
tell us your top Nollywood films too. Like, give us everything you got, man.
Rihanna versus Beyonce. It's the most ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous Nollywood. Like, it's just wild.
From the wigs to the plot.
I mean, it's like Dancehall Queen or like Shatas for us. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Shatas is not ridiculous.
Shatas is ridiculous. Come on, Biggs. No,
Biggs and Wayne,
the concept is not. The acting is horrendous.
You shout out to Lennox or what's my man's real name? Louis Rankin, R.I.P.
Yes. Anything else you want to add, my brother? Thank you for this space, though. I think I wish my parents were alive to experience this conversation because it was something they wanted to see so badly.
Yeah, man. I think, back to it's important to. I feel like I've always tried to honor your culture and not, as a friend, standing next to it, bringing it up, participating in it where you've allowed me to. And I've been fortunate and a beneficiary of being a participant in your culture and meeting your family and such. And it's helped me to understand, back to that, making the picture whole, helped me to understand the pieces that I've been missing. So I appreciate being a bystander, being a part of it. So there's nothing else that I would share, man. I just think it's important to have this context because it comes up in flashes every single episode and the folks need to know my dog is African. And if nothing else, I'm gonna get you, sucker. So let's close out there.
Well done, man. Well done. I'm playing this song because, as you alluded to, I love to dance. That's just how I grew up. All we did was dance.
Dance
Christmas,
fever.
I was doing dance fever. Exactly.
Go ahead and with the shoulders, bro. It's a lot of this when you get into the joint.
Zan doesn't dance, but if you ever see us out in the future, if Zan is dancing, you want to hang out with us because it's almost always a good night.
I'm gonna just let you vibe out.
Everything you do, me never told nobody. You say your man can't control your body, so make up rock your body, 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 rock your body.